What's up, everybody? You know what time it is. It's time for
Run It Back.
I am your host, Shane Mallory, with my co-host,
Ricky DaCosta.
And guys, we got a big week. Crazy weekend, Saturday and Sunday in sports. We got NFL, we got UFC, and opening night today, baby. NBA. Let's go. So I'm excited. When we get to the NBA, too, I got to make a little bit of a change, a little surprise change on some of my picks. Did a little bit of reading.
Are you already backtracking?
Hold on.
Season hasn't started yet?
We've got rules in the bylaws. It clearly states I have up until the season starts to make my decision.
Are they even written, or is this a blank book?
7:02, so tip-off isn't until 7:30, so I have until that time, all right? I might have to work it into the first segment, though. Otherwise, I might be cheating the bylaws. But crazy week in the NFL, all right? Let's work our way backwards, starting with the most recent game. And before we even get into all that, guys, just make sure that you like, comment, subscribe on all our major platforms, all right? We could really use it. We love interacting with you guys on all the various topics. So please, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Listen, I like to keep it real. So we're those Cowboy fans, right? The 49ers lost. So this is your opportunity to show up.
It's opening
right?
up. It is opening up.
So Cowboys fans, we want to see you in those comments.
Yeah. So, listen, but before we even go to any of that, 49ers versus Vikings, shocking game, final score, 22-17. Not the Niners, it was the Vikings. Give me your thoughts on that game.
So ultimately, obviously, everybody wants to dump Brock Purdy right now.
Yeah, which I don't like. It's an overreaction.
It is an overreaction. At the end of the day, the NFL season is a very long season. And when it comes to it, there are moments within the season that the teams start to, I don't want to say unravel a little bit, but sort of get banged up, lose focus.
Yep.
It's the grind of the season, and I know some of the teams really just try to make it to that bye week so they could have a full reset. Obviously, CMC was dinged up. Trenton Williams was out. Debo was out. And I think what you see, one of the things that I talked about, if you want to run it back, I talked about Kyle Shanahan doesn't always like to use all of his weapons at the same time, right? It was, this game is the Debo game. This game is the IU game. This game is the Kittle game, right? So
like
now,
the Dolphins, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Here's the situation, right? Debo was out. So now Ayuk has to be a true number one receiver, right? So he's facing the best cornerback. He's facing double teams. Second half of that game, the Vikings took him out of the game.
Yeah.
Ayuk was nowhere to be found. Now, Kittle stepped up, but I didn't feel the flow and the rhythm of that game. And where I will talk about Brock Purdy and not give him credit is that he throws with anticipation.
Yes.
But sometimes if the defense knocks your receiver out, if the receiver stumbles, reroutes him, that timing isn't perfect, then you see those interceptions directly to the defender. And you're wondering, what are you doing?
Yep.
Well, he's throwing it based on timing, not necessarily paying attention to, hey, the receiver is late on his break. The receiver got an illegal contact, but there's no penalty thrown. Right? So that's the problem with Brock Purdy. And listen, ultimately, he is a system quarterback. He just runs the Niners system tremendously well. But listen, I think it's a learning opportunity. Who I will put the blame on that no one I feel is talking about is Kyle Shanahan.
Fair.
Okay? And here's why. When it comes to Kyle Shanahan, he's not great at in-game adjustments. Right?
He likes to call his game the way he calls his game.
He creates a game plan and he executes his game plan, but in the game, there's a feel, there's an ebb and a flow, there's a counter to a counter. And a crazy stat that I found out about Kyle Shanahan. He is 0-29 in games in the fourth quarter where he's down by more than 5.
Wow.
Right? His team is not built
to
come back. Right? And I think that also leads to that in-game adjustment. Also, where was the running game? If I'm not mistaken, CMC only had about 17 carries. Right? So, yes, I understand.
Didn't look completely healthy, too, to me.
Which is fair. So maybe you didn't really want to ride him that much. But then where's the rest of your backfield, right?
You've got good backup running backs,
100%.
Too. I love the young kid Mason, too, as well. Mitchell, use those guys.
So that's where the screen game was taken away.
You didn't have Trent Williams, too, so that could have hurt them as well.
Now, ultimately, the defense didn't show up, right?
No, they did not play well
Kirk Cousins looked like an MVP, and at the end of the day, you are what your numbers say you are. And right now,
16 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I mean, he's got the best touchdown interception ratio in the league.
The record sucks, right? You're 2-4. but Kirk Cousins, he's close to leading the league in touchdowns, top 5, as well as he's top 5 in yards.
Are they 2 and 4 or 3 and 4 now? The Vikings.
They're 3 and 4.
Yeah, they're 3 and 4.
They're 3 and 4. So okay, all right.
They're starting
I apologize. They're climbing back.
Yeah.
It is a crappy division, like I mentioned when we talk about your Lions.
My Lions.
But at the end of the day, you got to give the Vikings credit.
Sure.
Jordan Addison, man. Listen. I love the kid in the draft. He was a stud at USC, and I think you're finally seeing what he could be, and he's doing it without Justin Jefferson.
Sure.
If they learn how to properly use them when they're together, I think that could be a crazy dynamic. But the defense and the defense of the Vikings, the coaching is what's really leading them right now.
Flores had a great game plan. I thought the Vikings just, in general, I thought they outcoached the Niners.
He is leading the league when it comes to blitzing. 57% of the time, his defense is blitzing versus the rest of the league. The second and third highest team is right around 37%.
Well, it's probably because outside of Danielle Hunter, they don't have anybody else that can quite get after the quarterback. But let me tell you something about him, man. Leading the league in sacks right now at 9. He just got his lead in 9th last night. Danielle Hunter was a stud. It was so funny to me. It almost looked like the teams were reversed last night. It looked like the Vikings looked like the 49ers last night, and the 49ers had looked like the Vikings previously.
Absolutely.
You mentioned coaching, too. Clap it up for Kevin O'Connell. I mean, the game plan he called was masterful on offense. I don't know if you caught it at the one point on the camera. Before that final PI call that was on Jordan Addison, he told the refs, watch number 3. Watch number 3. And I'm like, that's a guy who's so in tune with his game plan, and he so understands how the San Francisco 49ers like to play, and bang, they make that call right that decides the game.
Well, that's the thing. It's you can call it a whirly bird or a pivot, right?
Yep.
You run up, you cut to the left, but then you reverse back out to the right.
It was a great move.
It was a great move. 100%. From a defensive standpoint, you can't help but try to get your hands up because
the double moves are the hardest things to guard against as a secondary guy.
Exactly.
They're so hard.
Listen, it was obviously a critical juncture, but based on that route, he knew that the defender was going to get his hands on him. So that was going to be a legal contact, or he was going to be wide open at the end of the day because the defense is always reacting.
Yeah.
So, listen, the Vikings won that game. No matter what you say about the 49ers, the Vikings won that game.
Up front.
You have to give them credit for it.
Shut down the run game, too.
Listen, am I still a believer in the 49ers? 100%. The trade deadline's coming up. I'm expecting this might motivate them to make a move 100%. But they're gonna get right. They need to get healthy. So I'm still a believer in the 49ers.
Okay, so listen, and again, I think ultimately the 49ers will rectify this, but my causes for concern are 2 games in a row where their championship level defense, or supposed to be championship level defense, has kind of been anything but. And you mentioned some great points about Purdy and Shanahan and kind of the working off. Purdy likes to throw on platform, on time but that's where maybe some of his limitations are starting to come up, where it's like the best quarterbacks in this league have the ability to be able to play off platform. If the quarterback cannot adjust to playing off platform and realize that his receivers are getting rerouted, then it's on the coach to come up with some adjustments, as you said, adjustment to the adjustment, and adjust for your quarterback's deficiencies. Now, I don't want to pile on Brock Purdy. I feel like the world is sitting there going, he's a fraud now. Like, what do you expect him to have a perfect passer rating and not throw an interception ever? Like, it was going to happen.
He has 2 losses. You still have to
give the guy credit. Sure.
Right? I think he has like an 88% winning percentage or something like that. So listen, in the
can they get to a Super Bowl with him? I think is going to be the biggest question.
100%. Yeah. With a full arsenal of weapons, he can succeed. Remember, in the Browns game, he got them in position to win the game.
That's the other thing. Their
rookie kicker. You
kicked a bomb later in the game too, but yeah, I mean, you can't be missing these.
So, but this is the growing pains, right? Everybody talks about Philadelphia, right? New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Yep. Their offense doesn't look right. Well, when it comes to the 49ers, you got a rookie kicker, right? Technically, Brock Purdy's back from injury, right? So he's looked good, so we haven't questioned anything about him. CMC is nicked up. Debo is out. The pressure was on Ayuk. Now Kyle has to figure out how to use all of his weapons at the same time.
Might have to open this offense up a little bit more.
Agreed. 100%.
Use your other running backs too. But again, I'm inclined to probably agree with you based on what I've seen. The utter level of dominance the Niners had shown prior to these 2 games. It's the NFL season. Like you said, it's long. A lot can change within a couple of weeks. But they do have to figure out some issues.
Now, the question is, I'll leave you with this. did the 49ers even take the Vikings seriously? Right? I mean, they were 2-4 at the time.
Sure.
And listen, I think most people expected them to come in, exert their will, and win the game. So the 49ers probably slacked off a little bit in terms of not taking the Vikings seriously. And, they got punched in the mouth. They had an opportunity to win.
Sure.
But the problem is when you make a couple mistakes and you don't take your opponent seriously, you open the door for a loss.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, to me, watching that game, and I got home a little bit late from work, but then I started watching from the end of the first quarter on. Vikings just looked like the more prepared team. They looked like they had a very good game plan for the 49ers. We'll see if the 49ers can come back and rebound and get through some of these injuries. But you mentioned the Eagles. Okay, I want to talk about that Eagles, and they played your Dolphins, right? Just like my Lions. America, doesn't anyone remember that time weeks ago, something about an egg and on my face and all these different things? Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Listen. I'm not going to pile on the Dolphins. I think I'm not.
You can take this opportunity.
I think the Dolphins.
Remember, it's a long season.
It is.
And Xavier Howard is coming back.
Sure.
Right? Jalen Ramsey's going to come back.
Do they play up front on the line of scrimmage?
Listen.
Oh, all right.
Let's see if you can throw the ball against them when they get there, right? Nick Chubb all of a sudden gets a little better.
I'll give you that in terms of some of the outside matchups because you saw them both with the Bills matchup, right? Obviously. And then obviously last night, Philly with A.J. Brown. 2 nights ago. I apologize. Here's what I'm seeing when I watch the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is not even, and I'm a Giants fan saying this, Jalen Hurts is not playing his best ball, and the Eagles just keep winning and pushing everybody around the field. My question to you is, are they the best team in the league, or are they at least the most talented team in the league? And the reason that I'll say that first is, obviously the record, they're right there with the Chiefs, 2 best records in the league, but from a talent perspective, we know about the guys on offense, right? We know A.J. Brown. We know Devontae Smith. DeAndre Swift is playing great this year. One of the best O-lines in the league. Dallas Goedert is a heck of a player, too. But then you go to the defensive side of the ball. Interesting stat I heard today. 7 first-round picks on that defensive line. 6 of which Philadelphia drafted. The 7th being Hassan Reddick, who they got from the Commanders. My question to you is, are they the best or at least the most talented team in the league, top to bottom?
Listen, from a talent standpoint, they're stacked.
Yeah.
Right? They're stacked, and from a defensive and offensive line standpoint, I think you have to give them that particular credit.
I agree.
Like, if you really want to nitpick, their secondary just got better, right? They made a trade for...
they did. I was just reading about
Bird,
that. Safety, right?
A safety from the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
Right, so they got some help back there.
Pro Bowl safety, I
Pro
believe.
Bowl safety, exactly, for a 5th-round pick. This is what the Eagles do. They're bringing in talent.
Yeah, Howie Roseman's name, right? He's aggressive.
Howie Roseman, 100%.
I love it.
But again, I'm interested to see when the Eagles play a team with 2 top cornerbacks, 2 solid cornerbacks, or a great defensive scheme, and you take away A.J. Brown. And now Devontae Smith hasn't been a part of the game, but now you have to rely on him. All of a sudden, he's had a couple drops. Why? I think he's been asleep during the games. Yeah. He's getting no attention. All of a sudden, all the love is going to A.J. Brown and, Devontae Smith, he's second rate. Again, when it's a little bit like basketball, right? When everybody's touching the ball, you're into it, you're focused, you're excited. There's a rhythm. In football, it's very similar, right? These are wide receivers. They want the ball.
Sure.
Right? So if A.J. Brown is averaging 125 yards in 4 consecutive games.
Yeah.
Right?
But you're getting
But then Devontae Smith, if I'm not mistaken, has 1 40-yard game in the last 4, right? So all of a sudden, no matter how close you are as a team, right, everybody has to get fed too.
Well, so what I'll say to that is I like your points about if you've got guys that can guard on the outside, but that still doesn't solve the other issue. First of all, the tush push that they're calling it, it's the most unstoppable play I've ever seen.
Like 92% conversion rate.
2 4th downs on their own side of the 50, and I'm watching the game and going, I know they're going to get this. Like, the Dolphins cannot stop. No team has been able to stop this play yet. Other than, I guess, obviously in that Jets game, when they went back and further reviewed it, it looked like he didn't actually score, but they gave him the touchdown.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the conversion rate is insane. But just in general, their run game is absurd, and they're going a little bit of running back by committee too. They try not to go too heavy on DeAndre Swift because of his injury history, but when he plays, he looks great. You have Gainwell too coming in there as well. It seems like any running back is going to kind of fit and slot in behind that offensive line, and they're going to be productive.
100%. Listen, Jalen Hurts got nicked up in that game.
Yes.
Right? His right knee.
Clearly not running right. You can see it.
So, first of all, he wasn't running prior to this, and now his knee is nicked up. So I think that's something to watch for, because if he was being cautious during the beginning of the season and saving himself for his legs for the end of the season in the playoffs, I understand that. Now that it's nicked up, it's hard for that type of knee injury to get better during the season. So I think that's something to watch out for Philly. So for now, based on their record, yes, you have to give them the credit. Push comes to shove, Eagles versus the 49ers. Depending on who has home field advantage, I think that's the team that I would lean towards. Right now, I'm not getting off of the 49ers bandwagon.
Okay, so again, I like the Niners, obviously. I think I slightly lean towards the Eagles, but you did bring up Jalen Hurts. And the injury is one thing. My other concern is just the overall way he's playing right now with the turnovers. I do wonder if that might be the difference come playoff time, big situations, big moments. If you can find a team that can shut down their run game and force Jalen Hurts to have to go and throw, can that be the way that you go and beat the Eagles? Because to me, it seems like the key is you're going to have to stop them from running the ball. You're going to have to. I think the Dolphins are still good. I think the Dolphins are going to be a playoff game. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the first half / second quarter report next week, because we got week 8 coming up. But I just wonder if they have the bodies up front to go and beat the elite teams.
Now know this: 2 offensive linemen was out.
I think
for that
3
game.
actually.
Right, 2 or 3 offensive linemen. Like I said, Xavier Howard is out. Jalen Ramsey's out. They're going to get better, right?
Achane too, obviously.
Achane is out. And I think Waddle was out for a couple plays in that game.
He was, yeah.
So all of a sudden, and listen, I'm not biased or anything like that, but if I'm the Dolphins guy, there were 0 penalties on the Philadelphia Eagles in that game, and there was a clear face mask grab,
that was a PI,
right? That should have been a pass interference. Yep. That would have brought them into the 10-yard lines or better, right? That they could have scored. Tyreek Hill dropped the touchdown. Tua threw an interception in the red zone. Right, so that's 3 opportunities that they could have came away with.
They did get that interception return for a touchdown, though. Which was in that, I was actually like, whoa, because our picks were kind of riding on it.
Yes.
As much as I didn't want to root for the Eagles, I'm like, I need the Eagles to at least win this game so I can at least stay face coming into their show.
So listen, but here's the thing. I think these are learning opportunities, and I think, again, Mike McDaniels, he's a young coach, right? Second season, he's going to get better. And I think as the season comes along and the defense, starts to create more turnovers for the offense, I think they're going to be much better. I'm not giving up on the Dolphins. I think they're too dangerous and too explosive. If they get home field advantage, watch out for the Dolphins versus the Chiefs game. If they beat the Chiefs and the playoffs have to go through Miami, that's a tough place to play in December, in January. That's a lot of heat. Most people aren't conditioned and have the stamina to play under that type of temperature.
Sure.
So that's something to look out for. The schedules are going to make a huge difference. So I just want to bring up, right? Let's run it back for a moment. My pick in the NFC East division was the Cowboys to win the division.
Mine's the Eagles.
Yours is the Eagles.
Mine's the Eagles.
Here's why, okay?
Going to the schedule.
Just want to point something out to you, okay? The Eagles' next games go the Commanders, the Cowboys,
win.
The Chiefs,
loss.
The Bills, the 49ers,
loss.
The Cowboys, and the Seahawks in Seattle, okay? The Cowboys' schedule is a little easier. They got the Rams, Eagles, Giants, Panthers, Commanders, Seahawks, Eagles again, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, Commanders.
I do ultimately think it's still going to come down to what those 2 teams do against each other and within the division. Because the Eagles have the lead right now. It's only a game, but they have the lead.
So listen, it's if the Cowboys get their offense together,
sure.
Jalen Hurts is a little nicked up. I'm curious to see with that tough gauntlet that the Philadelphia Eagles have to go through, what their record is. The Eagles might be a better team, but they're going up against all the division winners, and that might cause them to not have as great of a record. If they sweep the Cowboys, then this is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But if they split or lose both of the Cowboys, there's a clear pathway for the Cowboys to win the division, and I think all of a sudden that puts a lot of pressure on the Eagles. So that's something to look out for.
Well, and again, I still think it's going to come down to, let's say the Cowboys take that first meeting and all of a sudden things are tied. Well, now the expectations are on the Cowboys to go in. And if there's one thing we could say about the Cowboys, they don't do the best with expectations. So it's going to be an interesting end to the season. But I'm sure you've been waiting to get to this next game, okay? First of all, I'm just going to clap it up.
Maybe more.
If you guys aren't paying attention, and listen, Lions, I think you're still a good team.
MVP.
I look at the Lions and the Dolphins actually very similar categories. I think they're both teams that are about a year away from being conference championship level teams. I think they're talented. I think they have so many weapons on offense, but I think they're that year away. They need that maturity. They need to go through it and have the experience of a more highly competitive or favored type team. Okay, because they both weren't division winners the year before. So it's steps. I think this is a process. Having said that, if you guys are not paying attention, I hear people all the time, put some respect on Lamar Jackson's name. First of all, that's your preseason MVP right now. I'd say right now it's a toss-up between him and Mahomes. Mahomes might have him from a stats measurement, but when you add in Lamar's running touchdown too as well, I have to double check here, but I think it's either 13 or 14 total touchdowns. He has 8 throwing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So a very good touchdown to interception ratio. Yep. And he is the offense, and that was clear in that game. He did whatever he wanted against the Lions. And the Lions looked like a team that were just inexperienced and almost somewhat starstruck after the first drive. It seemed like, whoa, I don't know if we have an answer for this guy. I saw Chase Hutchinson come in and just get caught inside on multiple runs. Bang, Lamar's right onto the outside. He did a great job of holding. He is very similar to Mahomes in where he can kind of change his arm angles to like where he has to throw a ball. I wouldn't say he's quite as accurate location-wise, but I mean, it's close enough. But where he lacks maybe in the throwing, he's more athletic than Patrick as a runner. I think right now that's 1 and 2 to me. Those are the 2 best quarterbacks in the league right now.
Agreed, but I think it's clear cut that Lamar is the MVP right now.
Okay.
And everyone talked about Lamar couldn't throw, right? Now he is,
which is a false narrative. He could do it in college. They just didn't 100%. Have him do it in the NFL.
He has the opportunity to do it now. He has the weapon. He's building a rhythm with Beckham. Everybody thought he was
Zay Flowers too,
right?
man. That guy's dangerous. That guy is dangerous.
And he still has old reliable and Mark Andrews, right? No matter who's in the backfield, they're going to be able to run the ball. Here's the difference, right? The Lions are a good team, but the Lions have built their team on almost bully boy football, right? They got a big offensive line. They want to run the ball. Yep. But if that's your attitude and you're gonna show up into Baltimore with that attitude, you're gonna get punched in the mouth. Right? And that is exactly what happened
Number
to the
one
Lions.
scoring defense in the league right now.
The Lions are not a bad team, but there are certain settings that you have to be prepared for. And the AFC North, right? That is a battle. That is a
Black
fight.
And blue division.
There's a bunch of gladiators in that division.
Sure.
So the Detroit Lions, you can't just show up and think you're just going to move the Baltimore Ravens around, right? Those linebackers took it personal. Roquan Smith, right? Think about it. He came from the division and knew that team intimately.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
That's a great
McQueen,
point. That's a great point.
Right? So there's a lot of personal attitude that went there, and Baltimore wanted to make a statement. Nobody's talking about Baltimore. Nobody's giving them the credit that they deserve.
I am.
Right?
That to me is that's top 3 team in the league right now.
If I'm not mistaken, Lamar has a 75% winning percentage against the league, right? He's lost the most to Patrick Mahomes.
All he does is win.
Right? So the Ravens are going to continue to win. They're going to continue to be successful. That game didn't surprise me. What I loved about the game was that he spread the ball around. Mark Andrews, Beckham. There was a Bateman sighting. Zay Flowers did his thing, and I really think that's going to continue. And
the Gus Bus was back too, man. The Gus Bus was back. He was in order.
The Ravens are for real. They got good coaching. Great quarterback, strong offensive line, strong defense. They have adequate receiving weapons now with a strong running game. They're going to do well.
So listen, they and the Chiefs both have my recipes to the keys to elite teams. Elite quarterback, okay? Elite offensive line and running game. Elite defense, number 1 in scoring, number 1 in sacks, okay? And top 5 in yardage allowed. The Ravens have the recipe to make it happen. I think right now, at least looking at it at this point in the season, the Ravens and the Chiefs are on a collision course for that potential AFC championship. Again, time will tell. I gave you credit.
Can we run it back? What did you say again?
What
was
right
that collision
now, based
course?
on this, they are on a collision course for the AFC championship. I think it's going to be those two teams. Now, we're still not at the halfway point, and as you like to often point out,
I'm just saying,
it's
somebody
a long
made that
season.
selection.
You did. But you don't want to celebrate before the finish line. You know what you always tell me on picks, right? It's not about how you start, it's how you finish. So let's see if we get there.
Hey,
but
listen.
I like those two teams.
I believe in the Ravens. Obviously, I love the Chiefs. And I just can't wait to be right.
Listen, it's going to be an epic game. And speaking of our Chiefs, first of all, can we do this? Wait, it's like... hip toss to the touchdown pass. Yeah, Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift. We saw it. That was fantastic. I was laughing so hard when I saw it.
So much love, man. I mean, the excitement around Taylor Swift.
Yep.
You know, she comes to the home game.
But here's the thing I took away from that game. The Chargers have a lot of weapons. They're struggling right now. Staley, it's gone. Herbert needs to be held more accountable. But they have weapons. They scored 7. It was a 17-17 game, and you're like, oh, wow, this looks like a shootout. KC came out in that second half, and the defense put the clamps on them.
If I'm not mistaken, they only the Chargers didn't score in the second half, and
they did. All the points where they did not score a point. The Chiefs' defense is for real. Put some respect on them, and their offense is starting to figure it right now. I really like Rashee Rice, the emergence of him.
Nicole Hartman just came back.
Nicole Hartman, that's another little gadget guy, and he loves the little quick screens and plays. He's an added element to their offense. And again, Isaiah Pacheco is doing something big in every single game. He's making some key game-winning touchdown, key run, all right, ceiling type play. Chiefs and the Ravens right now. Chiefs, Ravens, and Eagles right to me right now. They're kind of in a class of their own. I want to see the 49ers rebound next week. Got a tough game. I can't wait to talk about that in our pick segment. But other game, Bills versus the Pats, man. The high came out in the Bills. You brought up good points about this game in the pre-meet, too.
Listen,
as well. Belichick knowing them.
Listen, all season long, I've talked about Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I think Josh Allen is a very good quarterback. I put him in
extremely
my top
talented.
5. Yep. But I had a lot of concerns, right? There's an issue going on between Stephon Diggs, right, and Josh Allen off the field or whatever the case is. Then, ultimately, you're starting to see internally there's some issues going on with the Buffalo Bills, and their offense just doesn't look right. Josh Allen is pressing too much. Again, since he lost Dayball, it looks like he's
it's all on him too,
right?
though. In some
100%.
ways. Yeah.
All right, he's being Superman.
Yeah.
But the question is he playing the quarterback position? Right? Fine, you got big play Gabe Davis. Well, guess what? Can he just catch a 10-yard out route?
Sure.
Right? I want to see him make the
run
simple
game is falling
plays.
off somewhat,
There's
too.
never been a run game. Yes, fine. 3 games this season.
Early sample size, it looked like they figured it out.
Week 7, right, it's disappeared. Now, here's my issue with the Bills. They are 1-2 in the division, right? So their path to winning the division, they're in jeopardy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if you're losing to the Jets, you're losing to the Patriots, you're going to have problems. And next time you see the Dolphins, it's going to be in Miami.
Yeah.
Right? And guess what? Jalen Ramsey might be back. Xavier Howard might be back. And you just beat them down. They're going to be upset about that.
They can get
we're
after the
going to
quarterback,
see
too.
and also too, the Bills suffered some key injuries, right? Milano, right? And they lost their Tre'Davious White, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Those are 2 Pro Bowl players that they lost. Von Miller is getting healthy and trying to get back into form. So I have a lot of concern with the Bills. You lost to Bill Belichick and Mac Jones, who were 1-4, 1-5, and can't get right.
Yep. Well, Belichick also kind of gave you a pretty simple blueprint, too, as well. Put it all on Josh Allen. Don't let Stephon Diggs beat you.
It's a part of my argument, if Stephon Diggs was to get hurt, if Stephon Diggs was not on the Buffalo Bills, what would Josh Allen be?
Not only
what
that,
would he be?
What would the Bills just be as a whole? Josh Allen might still have tremendous numbers, but would they win games? I'm not sure that they would.
I agree. So at the end of the day, listen, they're in jeopardy of not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you're absolutely right.
Let's see what happens. But I am concerned about the Bills. I am not overreacting. I was concerned with the Jets. I'm concerned now with the Patriots. And let's not forget, they almost lost to the New York Giants.
I know.
Right? They were able to pull it out.
I did.
But when you start to add all that up, yes, you beat up on the Dolphins, but you know what? There's problems.
Yeah, well, listen, that's all the time we have for this first segment, but don't miss it. We'll be right back after this quick break. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Run It Back. This is segment 2, okay? I'm with my co-host, Mr. DaCosta. And before we get into some of the other topics with the UFC recap and the NBA, had to talk about, all right, I didn't wear the shirt today, but G-Men, let's go! Giants with the dub. Both called it right there, so that was nice. Wasn't the prettiest game to watch, but I mean, again, in the NFL, more games are lost than are won. You'll take the W any way you can get it. Give me your thoughts on the game. I was just super stoked that the season's not over.
I do like the. If you want to talk about season being over, listen, I was torn because I'm like Caleb Williams, right? Let's go all
There's
the other
other
way,
guys,
right?
though. There's other guys,
but
for sure.
At the end of the day, right? Like I want the Giants to win. I want them to succeed, and I was excited because they were able to carry over from the Bills game.
I agree.
Into the Commanders game,
especially defensively.
Defensively,
yeah.
Right? Listen, we all thought they were gonna have a solid defense, right? You know, Banks out of Maryland, you're right, is starting to round himself out.
Banks is good. And Dexter
Lawrence, right? So listen, the Giants defensively are getting it together. Offensively, they need to get healthy, right? Andrews should be coming back.
Andrew Thomas is back this week.
Right?
Yes,
he's back this week for the next game. Saquon
need him too against his pass rush,
right? So that made me happy.
Waller too. They finally start throwing it to Hyatt. It's like you drafted him. Let's use him.
So I mean, that just brings up.
I know.
Right?
I know what you're
it brings
say.
Up the topic.
This is the big topic everybody's talking about,
right? Again, I'm not gonna say
Tyrod or Jones.
Tyrod is better than Daniel Jones from a talent perspective, but when you look at Tyrod, that is a professional quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? That's the same offensive line that everyone said is garbage.
Some would argue even worse because now it's missing 2 of your starting tackles. But...
And look at Daniel Jones. He took 11 sacks versus the Seahawks.
Yep.
Now, study Tyrod Taylor. He's making quick decisions, which has been my issue with Daniel Jones this entire time. Tyrod is getting the ball out in just under 3 seconds, right? He's first, second read, and then he's gone, right?
You're not talking about talent. You're purely saying, like, Tyrod is just playing the position at a more professional and better level, higher level right now.
A mature way. At the end of the day, the Giants' offensive line, yes, is crappy right now.
Sure.
If you are a quarterback, you don't have time to get to your third and your fourth read, right? You got your first, you got your second, make a decision. Throw, run, throw it away. Sure. Period.
Yeah.
You don't hold on to the ball. You don't take all these sacks, and you put the ball in your playmaker's hands.
Yeah.
Right? What that reminds me of is, guess what? Brock Purdy. Right? Brock Purdy, you get the ball to CMC. You get the ball to
Ayuk and Debo and Kittle.
Yep. Well, guess what Tyrod Taylor did? I'm going to get the ball to Saquon. I'm going to get the ball to Waller.
I'm going to get the ball to Hyatt.
We drafted him. Guess what? He's a speedster. Let me throw it up.
Not use him apparently.
Exactly, right? In one game we had 2 touchdowns. Prior to this, we had 2 touchdowns all season from a passing standpoint. So that's what I like about Tyrod. He's making quick decisions, and that's just my problem with Danny Jones, right? We're paying you $40 million to make bad decisions. Yeah. That's unacceptable, right? Sure. Now, Tyrod isn't perfect, but he is running the scheme. Right? He's making good decisions, and he's putting the ball into playmakers' hands. And guess what? Listen, I brought this up before. If you look at the energy with the team, you look at their belief, you look at their fight, right? Under Tyrod Taylor, it is significantly better with him than with Daniel Jones. And here's going to be the true test coming this week when they play the Jets. Yeah. Right? We saw Tyrod play the Bills. Yes, he made a couple mistakes, but you know what? He looked good. He had the lead, right? Against the Buffalo Bills till they lost it at the end. Sure. Right? Here's an opportunity. We had some turnovers, right? We let the Commanders back into that game. Yep. We missed field goals. That was an opportunity for us.
The defense held strong, though. That was the nice thing to see about that. The defense
held strong. Now we're going to play the Jets, and Daniel Jones is coming back in. We're going to see how the team fights. We're going to see the decision-making from Daniel Jones. And at the end of the day, I get it. He's getting paid $40 million, so he has to start. He has to play. But is he what's best for this particular team in this season, in this moment? Time will tell.
So it's interesting. You bring up a lot of different points because I think Daniel Jones is definitely the more talented quarterback of the two. There's definitely more upside there. But Tyrod, so far, you can't argue. It's looked like in the games that he's played in, he's given us the Giants, the better chance to win. Okay? Now, some people will argue, well, the schedule that Jones played was much harder. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm kind of the guy. The schedule is what the schedule is. At the end of the day, it's the NFL. All these teams are professionals. I want to, whoever gives us the best shot to go and win these games, right now it does.
Can I just point something out?
Look like Tyrod Taylor.
The Commanders have a great defensive line.
Sure.
The Buffalo Bills have a great defensive line.
Sure.
And against both of those defensive line, right, Tyrod Taylor,
he was able to move, escape the pocket.
Right.
Sure.
In the game against the Commanders, he threw for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns. Right. Daniel Jones struggles to throw for 2 touchdowns, to throw for 200 yards.
Sure.
Last season, he only had 15 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, let's see what happens.
There's going to be pressure on him in 2 ways. One, that New York Jets front, is terrifying. Yeah. Right? I don't know how the Giants are going to handle Quentin Williams up front. Jermaine Johnson, at least we get Andrew Thomas back, so let's see if that helps. But there's pressure in 2 ways. Obviously, the pressure I just mentioned from the New York Jets, but also Tyrod actually won you a game. Now, Jones had that one big game against the Cardinals, really the second half. Okay, so you see the potential there, but the pressure is going to be on him to come out and perform this game because the Giants are just coming off of 2 competitive games. They probably should have won both of those games, but they got one, okay? Mm-hmm. If you go back out here and you struggle, you panic, and you start to show those same signs, it's just... I can't see them benching him, but at the same time, I could see the New York Giants fan base getting very upset.
So I'll say this, right? Confidence is real in football, right? And all of a sudden, you do 1 thing right, you do 2 things right, you do 4 things right, all of a sudden you have a great game.
Sure.
Right? So when your quarterback is making quick decisions, when your quarterback is getting the ball out quickly, all of a sudden that crappy offensive line looks a hell of a lot better. And guess what? They're fighting a little bit harder for you, right? Because you're not making them look bad.
Sure.
Even if they get beat on a block, you're running, you're getting rid of the ball, right? You're throwing the ball, right? Yep. So all of a sudden now they have more opportunity to succeed. They don't have to hold that block for as long. So now they're like, hey, I didn't give up a sack. I'm in the game, right? You're more engaged. All of a sudden, you give up a sack, you give up 2 sacks. Now you got no confidence, right? And it all falls apart.
Sure.
And so from a team perspective, that's what I want you to look out for this weekend. If all of a sudden the Daniel Jones is holding the ball long, the offensive line is going to lose their confidence, right? And I don't say give up, right? But not have the belief to continue to fight for this particular quarterback, and that's one of my biggest issues. I don't think
the team in general
inspires the team to win. He inspires the offensive line to go above and beyond for him, and that's my problem. Daniel Jones is the CEO. He's the mirror quarterback. He's not the New York quarterback. Yeah. He's not the Giants quarterback. Because right now, if it's about who gives you the best chance to win, Tyrod Taylor belongs in the game.
All right, well, listen, we'll see what happens against this game. Listen, I'm not against Daniel Jones. I want him to succeed, right? I'm a Giants fan, but this game, I think, is going to tell you a lot about Daniel Jones' future as a New York Giant. But I'm rooting for us, and I think it's going to be a competitive game, especially if the Giants defense continues to play the way it has. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of can they that New York Jets defense has made a lot of good offenses look very pedestrian.
But let me say this.
They got to step up.
Right? I have a particular saying. You can lie to anyone, but you can't lie to yourself. And in the football locker room, it's all about merit. So if all of a sudden you have the job, right, because the owner loves you, that's not going to fly in the locker room.
Sure.
Because when you have to run through a wall for a guy next to you, if the guy that's leading the ship you don't believe in, guess what? You're not going to kill yourself over that. So that's what I want to see. Can he step up and be a leader that inspires his teammates to go above and beyond for him? Right now,
you're not sure.
I just don't see it.
Okay.
And I have too much of a sample size. He's not a rookie quarterback.
No,
he's in his
not.
5th year. He just got paid $160 million.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley, that's been the heart of the team, has been disrespected. So guess what? sometimes you pick sides in the locker room, and
he got paid on the back of what Saquon Barkley did last year.
He was 75% of the offense last year. Daniel Jones got paid.
Yeah, Daniel Jones' success last year. I mean, obviously we can already see without Saquon Barkley, he clearly hasn't been the same quarterback. Let's see what happens in this game. Go Big Blue. Even though we've been somewhat kind of happy for the Jets. But you know what I'm doing?
You're right, man?
Whoa, hey, I'm ducking.
Did you get knocked out?
Oh, I'm ducking. Whoa, I'm ducking. I don't want Islam Makachev to throw a head kick at me here. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, let me get it out of the way here.
I thought you were having a seizure.
No, yeah, I had to get out of the way. So listen.
You're making the audience nervous.
I told you about these UFC fights that were on Saturday. A little bit of a mix-up with the time, obviously.
Yeah,
I forgot.
Abu Dhabi?
My fault. It was in Abu Dhabi, so the card started.
What time zone was that, man?
Not ours. That's all I do know. But what I can say is, luckily, I got home late from our varsity football game.
Did you win?
And was able to. We did not, unfortunately. Have a little bit of a tough season for us.
All right.
But, and that reminds me, too, I did speak, though, with one of the players. And after the season's over, he will come on as a guest for our show. So we will definitely blast that out.
Big-time recruit, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Big-time recruit is commit to Ohio State. So we'll definitely talk more about that.
We're going to bring that to you guys.
Yes, as it gets closer. Fantastic kid, too, by the way. You'll love him.
Like the suspense, too, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to say, keep them in suspense. Let them know, all right? But with that UFC cap, so I had the predictions of the fights right. I just had the wrong fighters. I'm sorry, America.
Therefore, you were still wrong.
So I was wrong, yes. But for a quick little recap, I was able to find the fights on YouTube, and I watched them both. First one, Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. I thought Khamzat Chimaev had a great game plan. I'm just going to wrestle. This is a guy who was a late notice add to the fight, so he probably hadn't been training quite to the level of me. If I force him to, and again, I know you guys aren't like fighting experts, but when you grapple, when you wrestle throughout the course of a fight, it is very tiring, okay? Especially for a guy who wasn't training the length of duration that you were coming up to a fight. So that's really what Khamzat did. And Kamaru is a good wrestler, but Khamzat, you could see, is just a little bit of a bigger, longer man. When he was able to get his hands on Kamaru, he was able to get him down. The first round was scary. I thought he was going to finish Kamaru a few different times. Heart of a champion. You got to give Kamaru credit. I mean, he fought, he battled his way, got through the first round. Second round, problems. I actually thought Kamaru was winning the round on the feet. He was striking him up. He defended multiple takedowns. Okay. He was this close to probably taking that round. Khamzat got a takedown at the end, kind of got dominant position, and I'm like, he probably just stole that round. Kamaru, you basically have to come out and knock him out in that third round. It didn't happen. They embraced after the fight. Much respect. Khamzat, I think, was very happy that Kamaru stepped up and filled in the role, so he got a fight. That was a big fight for Khamzat, too. Apparently, he will now be fighting for the middleweight championship of 185. And there's a new guy. He actually just beat the former champion, Israel Adesanya, who was a longtime champ, had beaten many guys. He had actually had a back and forth with one guy who had come over from kickboxing for a while, but he had retained his belt. He was dominant in the division, other than that one fight, until this last one. He lost to Sean Strickland. Now, apparently, Khamzat Chimaev will be taking on Sean Strickland. I don't know which UFC it will be next, but he'll be taking him on for the middleweight title. That'll be a phenomenal fight. The other fight, called a knockout for Volkanovski. It was a knockout, but it was Makachev who got the knockout. The biggest thing I took away from that fight was, after watching the first fight, Makachev did a fantastic job adjusting from the first fight to the second fight, especially given he was training for somebody completely different. So these were two short notice fights that both Volkanovski and Kamaru Usman ended up filling in for. Long story short, you could see right away Islam Makachev was not trying to let Volkanovski have any space. Volkanovski is the more known, better striker between the two. Islam's much more of a grappler. He's a wrestler type guy. Again, Khabib, Nurmagomedov. The men from the mountains, they wrestle with bears growing up as kids. So it's a different kind. True story. I'm telling you, you can look up that video on YouTube. You'll see Khabib wrestling a bear as a kid.
Yeah, I'm a city kid, right? So
we don't see no bears.
Me and bears, we don't get along.
We don't get along. But so Islam did a great job of not only closing the distance, but getting his hands on Volkanovski, letting him know, I'm the bigger, stronger fighter. I'm going to put my hands on you, slow you down. He started pulling on his head, threw a couple knees towards the face. He got Volkanovski then to think about the takedown. When they broke, Volkanovski got ready for a takedown. He level changed and faked, and then the hands were down. Bang! Head kick right to the top of the head. It was a flush.
Vicious.
It was a flush kick. Yeah, really bad cut. I know you guys watch like the highlights.
Yeah.
Man, great adjustment. Islam Makhachev is going to be a dominant champion. We'll see who he has next. Maybe he'll fight the guy who was supposed to fight in there, Charles Oliveira. That would be their second time going. But
and what was the issue that both of the fights got?
So Oliveira
got rescheduled.
Oliveira, I think they were both injuries. Charles Oliveira had an injury late in camp, couldn't continue, and then the other guy who was supposed to fight, a ginormous dude by the name of Paulo Costa.
Yeah.
Same thing. He was actually going to try to fight. But apparently a doctor wouldn't give him medical clearance, so they had to find replacements. But you got to give those guys credit. Jump off the couch. You know, you're only training for 2 weeks leading up to a fight. To get in there, I mean, heart of a champion. I mean, the sport is like no other in that regard.
I give you that. Yeah, absolutely.
But listen, that's the UFC thing for now. We will definitely talk about it when there's any more big-time upcoming cards. I have another guy, too, who would love to come on and break down some fights and analysis.
Yeah, listen, absolutely.
Future guests. We're going to get some future guests here. But
wait, sponsors?
Sponsors are coming, man. Sponsors are coming. They are coming. We got to work on a few.
Keep liking and subscribing until we get those sponsors.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. Yes, we will get there in time. But it's time, baby. NBA season. It's opening up tonight. For the record, before we even get to talking about the season in general, and I have to make a couple of quick changes. The bylaws, we argued about this before the show, people, and the bylaws clearly state
reneges
as long as the season has not started, I have my right to pick. The games do start tonight. We're not watching, so technically we can't have any. So, 2, 1, I had the Mavericks coming out of that one division. After doing some further reading, while I do feel their defense will be improved, I like the Pelicans out of that division.
Okay.
So out of that division, I like the Pellies.
Who also picked the Pelicans?
You did. You did. Good call. I like a healthy Zion this year. But my big changing my NBA Finals pick.
Whoa.
I am going Los Angeles Lakers over the Milwaukee Bucks. I think AD is poised for a big year. I think AD's been hearing all the chatter about him. I think he's mad. I think he's mad about what Jokic did to him last year. I think he's mad about all the love Giannis gets as a defensive player. AD's coming, man.
So let's get this correct.
Sure.
You're betting that Anthony Davis is going to stay healthy for a whole season, show up in the playoffs, make it to the finals.
Because of their depth. Because of their depth. They got the young kid Jackson, who I keep forgetting his last name, but the young center who can go and spell Anthony Davis minutes. They've got Christian Wood, who can also...
You know Anthony Davis doesn't have good back-to-back games. You know that, right?
But he might not have to play all the back-to-back games this year because of that much needed
You know, in the playoffs, it's like every other day, right?
Rui Hachimura, too, 6th man of the year, by the way. You heard that first. You heard that here first. Rui Hachimura is going to be 6th man of the year.
If you came here and said, you know what, like LeBron is going to go from being 39 to 25 again and carry this Laker team, I would agree with you.
No.
But Anthony Davis?
He'll be LeBron when it matters the most, but he can't do that over the course of a season anymore. No, AD is out. AD is out to left. He got a taste of that.
You know this is not the COVID season where they're playing in the bubble, right?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Listen.
The season.
I get it.
Playoffs and the finals.
AD leaves a lot to be desired. But I think that series against the Nuggets it's going to be the best thing that ever happened to him. Because all the chatter, people talking about how Jokic dominated him. And the Nuggets talked a lot through the offseason. I think AD is internalizing that. And I think AD realizes, I don't have to be the best player in the regular season. But come playoffs, I'm about to eat.
So you don't think the Warriors are pissed off? Right?
I'm sure they are.
What about the Suns?
Sure.
Right? I mean, if you're talking about people not getting injured, then what about the Clippers? Right? If that's the case, then
you want to talk about AD? At least AD plays in games. I mean, the Clippers. I mean, I did.
The way he plays in the other games, I don't even know if you want to call that playing.
So it's funny. I have an NBA chat with like my good friends that are all growing up, and they everybody's talking about like the different teams, outcomes. What do we think's going to happen? And then somebody throws, "What about the Clippers? You know, the Clippers." And I go, I think they have a really good shot at winning this year's. Okay, geriatrics backgammon tournament of champions at the old people's home. That's what I think the Clippers are going to do. Because I'm just one of these guys that until I actually see you go out and
they're about to get James Harden, right? When they get James Harden, they're just they're gonna be a superstar.
God, nothing says championship like James. I've never won a significant game in my life. Harden, yeah, James Harden. That'll be the key. Yeah, I mean, my Lakers over Bucks. We can say all we want about AD. At least he plays the majority of his games. I mean, here's my thing. I don't actually mean to disrespect him personally, but if there's one person I would call out on the Clippers, Paul George is one thing. Kawhi Leonard came over with I need to get the LeBron treatment. I'm going to come to practice when I feel like it. I'm going to play in games when I feel like it. Dude, at some point, you want to be LeBron, you got to get some LeBron results. You have done nothing but disappoint since you've been in LA. And the fact of the reports last year where Ty Lue was ready to leave the team because he's just this guy shows up 2 hours before tip-off and he just says, I'm not playing. To me, it's just, I think Kawhi, when he's healthy and he plays, top 5 NBA player in the league. I mean, offensively and defensively, one of the best. In some ways, his game kind of reminds me of a Jordan/Kobe where it's he can go out and get you the bucket on one side, and you can also go and lock up your best player on the other side. But the best ability is availability. Play, Kawhi. I'm challenging Kawhi and the Los Angeles Clippers. If that team's healthy, they're a problem in the West.
Just make sure you stay healthy. Anthony Davis,
Listen, Anthony Davis plays more than Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to deny.
At least last season he did.
He did. I'm not going to deny AD has definitely had, injury problems and missing back-to-backs and things, but he still plays more than those two guys. So that's why I just trust the Lakers more.
Okay.
Add in with the depth and the fact that LeBron and AD could kind of rest games when needed, and the Lakers can still go out and put a competitive product out on the floor. I like the Lakers' depth.
Listen, I'm busting your balls, but I do like the Lakers as well. The depth is real, and this is going to be a full season that they have together, so I am excited to see what they do, what they produce.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, that team is led by LeBron, right?
Fair.
If LeBron stays healthy...
but would you agree to this? LeBron is definitely the leader. He's emotional. But for them to get to where they need to go at this point in time, AD's got to be the most impactful player.
Yeah, I agree, but AD can't be the leader, right? He can lead the team in scoring,
sure,
right? But LeBron
it's kind of like the Steph Kevin thing, though, right? When they were together, Steph was the leader of that team. But KD, if we're just going pure ability and talent, KD is definitely the more talented player.
Listen, in football, we've talked about confidence, right? We've talked about desire. We've talked about hunger, 100%. Right? And I think that is a little bit of AD. We need to see the hunger. We need to see the aggression. You're too big. You're too talented, right, to be just shooting threes all day, right? I want to see you get that. Look at Jokic, right? Yes, Jokic shoots a lot of threes, but he gets down now. He in the paint right now. He's a little bit more finesse. He's not going to bully ball you, but AD has that ability to bully ball. Has that
AD a bit last year
to dominate, right? And I think everyone is looking for AD to be that dominant defensive presence and that dominant in the paint presence.
Sure.
When AD does that, then the respect will be on his name as a top 10 player, top 7 player, the leader of the Los Angeles Lakers. That's what we need to see from AD, right, to take the Lakers to the finals.
Sure. And
LeBron can rest and show up in 1 or 2 games and dominate, right? But AD has to dominate consistently. I want to see AD average, which he did defensively for 2 of their series, right? Yeah. But he's got to do it throughout the season. He's got to do it in the playoffs. AD has to make a statement, right? And then the Lakers can go somewhere.
See, that's where I'll somewhat respectfully disagree, though. The NBA now with the regular season, I don't think AD necessarily has to be dominant over the course of the regular season. This is kind of a problem with our culture in general now, where it's just everything's about the end and it's just about the rings and the championships and what do you do in crunch time. But if I'm AD, that's what I'm going to look at. I'm going to do what needs to be done in the regular season.
I disagree. I 100% disagree because you have to show that continuity throughout the regular season. I'm not saying you have to do it for 82 games, right?
Sure.
But, 60 of those games, you have to show us your greatness. You have to show us that it's not about turning on a switch, that this is who you are so that your team knows how to play. Your team has the rhythm. Everybody knows their role. You can't just drop 40 points one game and then show up with 15 points the next. No, you got to show up 28, 30 points every game. Know your team can rely on you so everyone else can do their role.
Here's what I'm going to say, though, to, again, combat that. Again, look at the Lakers and look at the Warriors last year. Lower seeds in their first round respective matchups, and they beat the higher seeds. What I'm seeing in the NBA right now is a lot of these teams...
Did they win the championship?
They didn't win the championship, but they beat two higher seeded teams. Now, they didn't beat the highest seeded team. So if you're going the larger course, yes, I get it. But I think my point is the Lakers and the Warriors don't have to have the best seeds to go and make it to the NBA Finals.
I just think you just can't show up anymore, right? You can't just turn it on, right, and expect to win the NBA championship. I don't think any team is that good. I don't think the rules allow for it. You need the continuity. You need your defense, right? You need to know your offensive scheme to be successful. And so, look at the Boston Celtics,
Boston
right?
Celtics.
Like that's something they also need to do, right?
Sure.
But they have been consistent. They do push it to the limit and make it to the finals, make it to the conference final consistently, right? So the Lakers need to do the same thing, right?
Okay.
And that's important to see. Why did the Warriors go and get Chris Paul, right? They need a floor general.
Sure.
They want to build that rhythm, right? They had players hurt and they thought they could
But do you
just
think
turn
that
it
gets
on.
them the highest seed? Because I don't.
No, but
I think they just need to get there.
right, but
I think it's key for the Lakers and the Warriors, stay out of the plan. As long as you stay out of the plan, I think they're going to go come playoff time and beat any of those
advantage,
teams.
right? To get what you want, the Lakers need home field advantage. They need to be a top 3 team in the West.
I'm not
right?
going to say
gotta
it hurts
go
them,
through
but
LA. Right, and look, that's all that I'm saying, right? AD has to be consistent. They need home field advantage.
championship
they need to be a top
teams
3.
in basketball win on the road. Championship teams win on the road. Look at LeBron, circa 2000, was it 15, 16? Warriors beat him in their house, Game 7, the team that he was not supposed to beat. All I'm saying is in the NBA, when you've got that guy.
You want to bet on AD and you want to bet on AD winning on the road?
I want to bet on this. I think the Lakers or the Warriors this year, if they get matched up with the Nuggets in a series, I think if it was push come to shove, I think they could, not that they will, but they could go and win a Game 7 on the road in Denver. That's the key to their season. If they can win that game, then they can make it to the NBA
If either
Finals.
team is trying to win the championship, they need home field advantage.
You
because
always want
listen,
it.
Golden
If you can have
State,
it, it's great.
At that Chase Center, that's a phenomenal team, and you want that Game 7 to be at home. It makes a difference to have your crowd.
Tell that to Sacramento.
Again, they're inexperienced.
Yeah,
They're inexperienced. They haven't been there before, right? They weren't ready. And yes, the Warriors were able to surpass them because of their experience, because of their maturity. I'm applying the same thing. The Lakers can't rest on LeBron, can't rest on their laurels. They need to play a full season. They need to stay healthy. They need to build their continuity and rhythm. Everybody needs to know their roles. They need to be a top 4 team in the West. Right? Same thing with the Golden State Warriors. If those two things happen, they have a legitimate chance of winning another NBA championship. But if they're not a top 4 seed, they're gonna have problems.
All right. I mean, again, I'm just saying they were a 7 seed last year and they made it to the Western Conference Finals.
Did they win the championship?
6 seed or better?
Did they win the championship?
They didn't win the championship, but if they're a 6
If you're
seed
not
now,
first, you're last. Okay? Ricky Bobby, baby Jesus. Okay? If you're not first, you're last. Don't talk about who the bridesmaid was.
Who, again and again, look at Miami. Miami was the 8th seed and they made the NBA Finals. And that's now within a 4-year
win the
span.
championship?
But only 2 teams make the NBA Finals. So we at least have to give them credit for that. Just like a Super Bowl.
There are no moral victories in sports. Why are we talking about losers?
I can't wait
Let's
until
talk
we
about
have...
the championship.
I cannot wait until we have the discussions after both of the major sports seasons are over about what matters. Because I think that you're going to be eating some of these words in our mind. So Trent Dilfer's a better quarterback all time than Dan Marino?
Let's have that discussion.
Yeah.
How many Super
We'll
Bowls,
have it another time.
How many Super Bowls does he have? Exactly, right?
You're not taking, if you are a GM, you're not drafting Trent Dilfer over Dan Marino. But I digress. Make your quick picks for the games tonight. We got Lakers versus Nuggets first. I got Lakers.
I don't think, listen, the Lakers are hungry more. They probably do want it more. I don't think the Nuggets are going to lose at home. I think the Nuggets are going to take it personally. So I think the Nuggets are going to win. And, there are some injuries in the Suns game and the Warriors game. I think Beal's not playing. Draymond Green is out. I think that's going to be a toss-up game. I'm going to give the nod to the Warriors because they're at home.
I'll take the Suns because if Draymond's not playing, I feel like the Warriors are really going to struggle.
Are we keeping a record?
Suns. It's going to be tough over an 82-game season, but I can say that. So here, Shane, Ricky, and then Ricky, Shane. So there you go. I can keep a little tab on that. But that is all the time we have for segment number 2. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our final segment after this quick break. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's segment 3, the final segment of Run It Back. All right. Now, before we get into the picks, okay, and go over last week, couple of things here that we wanted to talk about. I'm going to go first, and then my co-host has a team that he would like to spotlight too as well, which I could not agree with more. But I got a rant, all right? And it's one thing. Listen,
here we go.
There were some really bad, either non-call or called PIs in games, pass interference. Got to get some consistency with this. It's driving me crazy. But that's one thing. It's human error. Human beings are going to interpret things differently on respective fields. Okay. The one thing that I cannot put up with, the NFL, you are a billion-dollar industry. You have people all over watching this game. Talking about the Rams and the Steelers. First of all, hats off to the Steelers.
Mike
Tomlin, all he does is win. Canada looked like he finally called a good game. He got all the playmakers involved. Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, welcome back. What a way to come back.
Absolutely.
But I don't want to take away from the Steelers, but great you won that game. But we're all watching a replay, okay? And again, it was all set up by a PI call that was, in my opinion, not a PI. The announcers agreed to as well. But nonetheless, you get to a 4th and 1 or 2. Kenny Pickett takes a sneak. He is clearly short, it shows it on the Jumbotron that he's short. Everybody's sitting there watching. How does a billion-dollar industry have no rectification for that, a rectifying way to solve that issue? It's just we're all watching it. All of America sits there and knows. Now, I'm not saying the Rams would have won the game because of that call. We don't know. But the choice, the point is, they might have at least had a chance to win the game if you had actually called it properly, because it would have been their ball, would have been turnover on downs, and at least they get one more drive. They don't even get that opportunity. And again, people will say, well, don't let the games be that close. This isn't high school. This isn't college football. This is the NFL. Most of these games are going to be decided within 5 points or less. Some games, 3 points or less. Yeah. So when the officials or the league messes up things like that, it just matters. That drastically affects both team seasons. No disrespect to the Steelers. They're playing well. And again, they played well enough to win that game. But at least give the Rams the chance that everybody clearly saw they at least should have had. Your thoughts?
So listen, ultimately, I don't disagree with you, right? That was a blatant call that could have been corrected.
It's on video. How could you fix it?
Well, here's the thing: is where do you stop, right? In the sense that if you allow, first of all, timeout. Let's blame the Rams. The Rams did not have a timeout.
Yeah, that's fair.
That play, right? Yeah. So push comes to shove, it is the Rams' fault,
you want to try to set yourself up.
I don't disagree with that. The officials made a bad call, but the management of that game by the Rams could have been better, so that they're in position to challenge it, right? Yep. So that's one. Right. Two.
What was the big thing too, though? What's the rule? All plays because it wasn't under 2 minutes.
It was about
so they
2
couldn't
minutes
challenge
and 15 seconds.
Right? I gotcha.
So they couldn't challenge it that way. So there's that management piece of it. Yes, it was a human error. But at the end of the day, right? If you open up that Pandora's box, right, in terms of now the replay or New York can challenge everything and change everything, it's endless. And do you open up PI calls? Do you open up holding calls? Right? I get you want to get the game right, but sometimes.
The only thing with that one is that there was no penalty involved. That's just a cut and dry. He didn't get the yardage.
That's where the management of the game comes in. You got to keep that challenge, right?
Yeah.
You got to keep your timeout. You get 3 of them, and you blew them before the final 2 minutes, right? So listen, I get it. I don't disagree with you, but the coaching staff, Sean McVay, they got to make better decisions, right, in managing that game.
I mean, listen, clock management is a part of the game, so I get it. And your point is valid. Obviously, the teams do have to do a better job. It's just really frustrating to watch.
But can I also say this? The Steelers dominated that second half.
They did.
Right?
They did. They came out and balled.
T.J. Watt had an interception for a touchdown.
What a play.
An amazing play, right? So give the Steelers credit. Mike Tomlin, that one moment didn't decide the game because the Steelers utterly dominated that game. Mm-hmm. You brought up Matt Canada. We beat him up. right, on this podcast.
Oh, he called a pretty good game, especially the second half.
Pretty good game. Let's see if he can put two games together. And I told you it was going to be interesting, right? Were they gonna, did Mike Tomlin get a little bit more involved, right, in the offensive game planning? Granted, he's still calling the plays, but right, is he designing the plays? I'd be interested to see what's going on, what happened behind the scenes, right, to get that changes. Yes, Deontay Johnson came back, so obviously that was a boost.
Boy, did he come back.
He did, right?
Man.
So George Pickens, man, that's a player, right? That's really a player right there. So ultimately,
just get him the ball.
Get him the ball. But the officials, there's always going to be some human error. Let's give them credit the other way.
It's the same reason why people aren't watching baseball anymore, because they're watching a play and the strike zone is up and you see a strike and then the umpire's like, ball, and I'm just like, listen, I'm staring at the TV. It was a strike.
Let's give the refs this credit. About 90 to 95% of the time they get it right. Football is a fast game. It's a violent game. Everything's happening, and literally
their contracts also though aren't even fully guaranteed.
They're not. They actually don't get paid that much.
Those guys work other jobs during the week. They just show up on Sunday to go and officiate football games.
Yes, that is true. So listen, right? Like now we're getting into a whole different avenue.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too.
But the key
off-season
is they're super professionals. 90% of the time they get it right. Let's give them the credit that way.
It's fair enough. Now, you want to spotlight, first of all, shout out to the Broncos. 2 games. They got 2 wins now. And this is back-to-back weeks where they haven't given up 20 points. Yeah, so maybe they're figuring a little something out.
Or the defense, right? Listen, we fired Vance Joseph, right, a long time ago. So we got to give him some credit. Like I said, we try to stay consistent, right? We try to stay consistent.
I'm like, no, he didn't. Oh, we did, yeah.
We beat up Sean Payton. They look good in these 2 last games. Now, I got to say, what in the world is going on with the Packers, right? Jordan Love
can't throw the ball deep.
Oh my God, where is Christian Watson?
I don't know.
Right, where is he? Right, like last year, he had a 5-game stretch. 8 touchdowns or something like that. He was tremendous. We saw the hope. We saw the potential. He hasn't been anywhere this season.
We did have an A.J. Dillon sighting, though. He actually scored 10-plus fantasy points. I think it's the first time in history that he's ever done that.
Probably, right? I got rid of him, right? But anyway, right?
Poor Aaron Jones.
Listen, Matt LaFleur, can he really coach, right? And now, listen, I'm not ready to bury him because Jordan Love doesn't look that good. But here's the thing. Jordan Love has been in that system for 4 years. What in the world is going on, right? So even though I don't want to kill Matt LaFleur for his game plan, but his development of Jordan Love, right, has been terrible. Can he coach, or let me say this, can he develop? Right? It's one thing to coach a Hall of Fame player that's already been developed, that somebody went through the
seem to cover a lot of warts within your system.
Exactly. So that's my issue. But, listen, the Broncos did well. But I really want to highlight the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're tied for the second best record in the AFC conference at 5-2.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence was hurt. Now, granted, he battled that game. The Saints looked like they had an opportunity to win. What in the world is Derek Carr doing on that New Orleans team?
He needs to stop yelling and screaming so much, too, man.
Listen, I agree, because you know what? You're not good enough to be coming at your teammates like that, right? And
I get it. Maybe he's passionate and emotional.
Right? Listen, I try to be consistent, right? Leadership matters, right? Now, he's going the opposite way. You're yelling and screaming at players and coaches, right? You need to be better. You need to be good enough. But
maybe Foster Moreau catches that ball if you're not on them the whole game like that.
100%, because you know what? He might have been afraid of making a mistake versus just doing his job.
Sure.
Because everything's so tense. Everything's so tight, right? Like, you first of all, where I give you credit with the Lions, they're having fun. Right? They're having fun. Now, granted, the Ravens beat them up, but they're having fun. And Jared Goff
and again,
Dan
2 back-to-back road games against division leaders.
Tough spot, right?
That's tough. That's tough.
But Derek Carr is definitely not leading and inspiring his team to have success. There's some issues going on with the Saints, but Jacksonville Jaguars, they're sneaky good right now.
They are.
They might end up with the second best record in the league, right?
Based on their division, that's very possible.
Based on the division. So it's interesting to see what happens with them.
Listen, I like them. They have an elite pass rusher. They have, to me, what is an ascending quarterback getting into that elite type level, okay? I don't think he's there yet, but I think he's damn close. They've already been to a conference championship game last year. And if you look at their record since last year, if they don't play the Chiefs, I mean, they're almost unbeatable. Yeah. I think they have like 2 losses that are not the Chiefs since last year.
Can we have a Calvin Ridley sighting? Right? Can we get Calvin Ridley the ball?
When he first came back, he was great, and now he just kind of...
Listen, and I get it, right? You know, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones is hurt.
Our boy Shawnee was shouting him out earlier.
You know, production back there, right? ETN is looking good, but can we get Calvin Ridley the ball? Can we get him the ball? He is an elite talent. He's a dangerous wide receiver. Put the ball in his hands, right? So that's my only issue with them. If they do that, now they're scary good.
I hear
they're scary good.
But they're winning games. They're figuring it out. They're starting to come with an identity. They're a sneaky good team. I mean,
their defense is for real.
They could sneak into that, that conversation of who's going to be playing in the AFC Championship this year.
I'll say this, in the playoffs, right? If they're healthy, that's a team you really don't want to see.
Yeah. I hear you. No, yeah. I mean, they're well built. They're built like a team that is emerging and ascending to that next level. But we don't even have to take long on this. Normally, we do a stud of the week where we each go through our picks. Guys, this is actually really simple. Unanimous. We talked about this during the break. It's got to be Myles Garrett. 100%. Just read this off right here.
Just read the stats. It's
First of all,
ridiculous.
They scored 10 points off of his forced fumbles, okay? Myles Garrett, 9 tackles, 7 solo, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a blocked field goal. He is 7.5 sacks on the year. That is good for third in the league right now. Third in the league. But again, he is dominating games on arguably the most dominant defense up until this past week, this year. Myles Garrett is not only, to me, the best defensive player on his team by far. He might be the best defensive player in the league, and we don't talk about him enough. So shout out our stud of the week. Unanimous. Both of us had him. Myles Garrett's men amongst boys.
Hey, dog pound, if you guys get yourselves a quarterback, man, watch out.
I mean, listen, that's something let's see how the Browns do this next week. But Deshaun Watson is something that we might have to talk about next week. There's a few things. But
where's the picks?
The picks are here. So now, listen, guys, first of all.
No hat?
I'm not even going to bring the hat on.
You just nervous?
You know why? I'm not going to bring the hat on because it was a tie.
Yeah, well, you haven't won 2 weeks in a row, right?
You won 1 week and now we tied. All right? But you didn't make up any ground.
But therefore, you didn't win, though, right? Just making sure, right?
I didn't win. Okay. All right. We both finished last week's picks at 7-6. But just to remind everybody, the career standings, of course. So that's now
living in the past.
After week 7.
Living in the past.
Mallory sitting with his beautiful
former glory days.
63-43 record. He gets back to 20 games over 500. And Mr. DaCosta does improve to 59-47. You're almost at that 60 mark, bud. Just keep climbing, keep pushing. You'll get there. Hey, if you're not first, you're... That's a callback. Listen, we call that a callback.
All right.
But
what have you done for me lately?
Another little side note. Didn't we play each other in fantasy this week? How'd that go? Yeah.
I see what you're doing. All right.
Let's go to the picks,
Listen,
though.
America, he clearly doesn't win very often because he has to point certain things out. But like I said, let's see where we are at the end of the season. Oh, by the way, what is your record in fantasy?
It's 2-5.
Oh, okay.
But 2 wins back to back.
And who's third in the league? Okay. Just
are you still third after that loss you took?
Details and context matters, right? So make sure you tell the whole story to the audience. But get to the picks, man.
We'll get to the picks, but I do want to point out, I mean, you had a good week. You had 152 points. I had 202, though. So, I mean, it's just still a whooping, You hear that emphasis with the whooping. Yeah. So, as I always like to do, sportsmanship. All right, we go into the picks. May the best man win. Starting off Thursday night, Tampa Bay at Buffalo. You want to start or you want me to go?
Go ahead, fire. What do you
want me to go? This is tough because both teams are struggling right now. I'm going to lean into, I think Baker is slowly starting to show his limitations. If teams can stop the run and force it to be like a Baker Mayfield type game, I think that's where Tampa Bay is going to struggle. They just can't seem to score points. As much as I'm not confident in Buffalo right now, they're at home. This is to me, this is somewhat of a get-right game. Warm weather team going to a colder area team, traveling very far. I like Buffalo.
Listen, I'm going to pick the Bills. I don't have a lot of confidence in them right now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
At the end of the day, they just lost, so they should be fired up. They should be pissed off, right? So they should win this game. As well as, at the end of the day, it's Baker Mayfield, man. It's just hard freaking picking him to upset on the road. So right now, I just don't believe in that. But again, If Tampa Bay wins, I'm not surprised, but I think if Tampa Bay was to win, it's more Buffalo losing than Tampa Bay winning. So I'm gonna pick the Bills as well.
Okay, all right. I'll let you lead on this one. Los Angeles at Dallas. Rams.
Yes, yes. You know what? Listen, I think this is going to be a sneaky good game.
I do too.
Good game.
I do too.
And I am going to go with the Rams.
Gonna go with the Rams, huh?
Right? I think they're coming off of a tough loss, right? I think.
Interesting.
Again, this is the perfect opportunity for Dallas, right? They're rested.
And you have Dallas winning this division, but you have them losing to the Rams?
I do.
That's interesting.
You're right. Listen, there's a time and a place, right?
Okay.
We talked about the season, right? We talked about the 49ers. You know what? No.
Oh, he's
I'm
reneging. He's reneging.
No, I'm not. I'm just joking. I'm picking the Rams.
Picking the Rams? All right. So I'm going to pick Dallas, okay? Begrudgingly. I like the Rams. I think they've been a nice story. I just think that Dallas... It is interesting because when you go from the coaching matchup, I definitely trust McVay more. From a schematic, like just really upfront talent-wise, I wonder if that Rams O-line can hold up against the Dallas front, especially Dallas coming off a week of rest too. I don't trust the Rams defense too. I think Tony Pollard has a big game. They are, again, I told you, they're one of the leading teams when it comes to explosive run plays. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like Dallas. I just like Dallas in the slate. I wouldn't be surprised though if this game turns into a bit of a shootout.
Okay.
Minnesota at Green Bay. I'll lead off on this one. I'm going to take Minnesota because I just don't trust Green Bay. They don't seem to want to throw the ball downfield with Jordan Love. I don't think that's an accident. I think they don't trust him to be able to. I've seen too much inconsistency out of Jordan Love. I just don't see how they score points. And how can I go against the way Minnesota has kind of rebounded and revamped their season somewhat? We were talking about them trading off parts a couple weeks ago. All of a sudden, they could end up being second in that division. And in the NFC, that might be good enough to get into the playoffs. Kirk Cousins is playing great right now. Doesn't even have his best receiver. Doesn't really seem to matter. I like the Vikings.
Listen, I have to agree. As I mentioned earlier, that defense is blitzing 57% of the time.
Danielle Hunter's a monster.
And Jordan Love isn't prepared for all of that blitzing and that scheme. So I'm going to go with the Vikings in this one. Kirk Cousins, 16 touchdowns. And I think their offensive scheme is going to be significantly better. Right? Okay. And I think from a coaching perspective, right? You know.
Addison, by the way, right. I wanted to say honorable mention for him stud of the week. Yeah, he balled out last night. Balled out last night.
So I think from a coaching perspective, the edge is with the Vikings offensively and defensively.
Agree.
So I'm on the Vikings also.
I like it. Okay. All right. So I give this one back to you. This is an interesting game. Atlanta at Tennessee.
You know, so listen, now when you think about this game, it's a little bit of a revenge game, right? Because Arthur Smith, right, was the offensive coordinator for Tennessee. It's at Tennessee. Tennessee is coming off of a rest. So I'm on the Tennessee bye week, right? So I'm on the Tennessee Titans, right? We're going to see if that Atlanta defense is for real.
Yeah.
I want to confirm, is Ryan Tannehill starting?
Oh, I don't know. You know what? That's a good question. Is there no way we can look that up, production, to see if Ryan Tannehill is starting?
Let's come back to that.
Well, we'll come back to that. Let's find out on that one because I'd like to know that as well.
Yeah, if he's not, then
no, I'm with you. I'd like to know that as well.
Right. Let me see if I can.
So we'll come back really quick. New Orleans at Indianapolis. This is another game where it's kind of just like both. It's at Indy. I just haven't loved what I've seen out of Gardner Minshew. Like I said last week, I feel like the Colts are somewhat kind of getting grounded and coming back down to earth. Although, they should have won that game against the Browns. It's another one of those games where I just felt like there was a call that, to me, it wasn't pass interference. But, I mean, again, I don't know what pass interference or roughing the passer is anymore. I guess it just depends on the officiating crew. I'm going to go with New Orleans on the back of their defense. And I feel like Derek Carr somewhat like rights the ship. He doesn't play fantastic, but I think he just plays well enough, makes enough plays for them to win. So
I'm on the Colts here, right? I like what I've seen from the Colts, right? Offensively, they were great against that Browns defense, right? Defensively, they have been good at home. That's a nice defensive line as well. And listen, Derek Carr and the Saints right now, they're just not trustworthy. And so I think Gardner Minshew will make enough plays, and the Colts will pull one out.
It's fair. Oh, wow. Tannehill is still questionable.
Okay. Right? So with that being the case, Yeah, listen, I'll still go with Tennessee as my pick, even though he's questionable.
I'm going to go with Tennessee as well, just because I feel like as good as Atlanta's been playing, and their defense is good, obviously, I feel like they're going to be dependent on their run game. And if there's one thing Tennessee can do pretty well, it's stop the run, especially my man Vrabel. He's great at that. So I'll go Tennessee as well here. So we split on 2 so far. Interesting. I don't think we're going to split on this one. New England at Miami. I'm going to take Miami all day, every day in that matchup. I get that Bill knows them. The Dolphins are just better. They're too talented. And the one thing the Dolphins have clearly shown is if they're going to play an inferior team, they're going to beat up on an inferior team.
Agreed. Phillips is back on that defensive line. Chubb is on that defensive line. They're going to dominate. They're coming off of a loss. Granted, it's a short week on Monday Night Football, but they're going home. It's a tough place to play in the Dolphins. Patriots usually have a hard time to play there down in Florida.
Sure.
So I'm on Miami.
Again, I always favor the team when it's two opposite ends of the spectrum weather-wise. I always favor the home team.
Agreed.
Whoa, the Snoopy Bowl. New York Jets at New York Giants. I'll take the lead. I'm taking my Giants, baby. Listen, I am afraid. Oh, we got a unhappy man production in the back. Because he's a Jets fan, so he's waving his little finger at me. No Dikembe Mutombo here, brother. New York Giants, on the backs of, I think that their defense is keeping them competitive in games. Zach Wilson has been playing fine, but I think this defense can actually get to him and frustrate him. And I like Jones to have not a great game, but a good enough game to go out and make some plays. I think Dable calls it up right, and I'm going to take my New York Giants.
Giants, I love you. But who's your starting quarterback?
Oh,
Daniel Jones?
Wow.
The Jets crush him.
You're going to the
Crush
Jets.
him. Listen, we're going to see Daniel Jones 5 or 6 sacks. I think this is going to be 21-10 type of a game. Jets win. Daniel Jones 2 to 3 turnovers.
Okay. Oof. I love this next game, and I love that you take the lead on it. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like this game. I like this game a lot. Where are you going?
Listen, this is a really good game. This is a really tough call. Granted,
two hot teams right now.
Two hot teams. I just spotlighted
both off back-to-back wins.
I just spotlighted the Jacksonville Jaguars. But again, I'm a consistent person, and guess what? When the Lions came into Baltimore, they got beat up.
It's the black and blue division.
Right?
You don't leave without a fight.
Those Florida boys are coming to Pittsburgh. All right, and they're gonna get beat up by those Steelers. So I'm riding with the Steelers.
I'm going with the Steelers too as well. I think this is a low-scoring, very competitive, physical type game. But
17-14, 21.
2017, something of that nature. I think Trevor Lawrence will struggle a little bit just because while he is good, he does have the propensity still to make some mistakes. He's still young. Yeah. And against a team like the Steel Curtain, I mean, that'll get you. They'll find ways.
TJ Watt.
Like the Steelers. Yeah, TJ Watt. Next one. I'll take the lead on this one too as well. Well, you know what? It is a division game. We got Philadelphia at Washington. Listen, I've been telling you, I've been holding my nose picking them, but the Eagles just impressed me. All they do is win games. Jalen Hurts is not even playing great, and they still just seem to go out there and dominate. It was a close game the first time these two teams played, but I think Philly has improved since then. They've gotten their one loss. They're manning up. I like Philly.
I think Terry McLaurin is going to have a big game, so from a fantasy perspective, I would jump on him. That. I would take his over yards, right? You know,
take AJ Brown too as well.
If you're gonna put that's the way he's
playing.
The ball. So, but no, I'm on
Watch
the
out for
Eagles
Goddard
here.
too. He's starting to sneak around and get back into relevance.
I'm definitely on the Eagles here.
Okay. Alrighty, Houston at Carolina.
Listen, I've been highly impressed by the Texans, C.J. Stroud. So I don't think this is the opportunity for the Panthers to get their first win. So I am going with C.J. Stroud.
All right. You know what? I'm going to have fun here. I'm going to call the upset here.
Oh!
Right? Listen, you know what I like here? It's the battle of the draft picks. Bryce Young has yet to go and win a game. Okay, now, I think Houston is the better team. I do. But Carolina's been getting closer. They had that real competitive game. They came out and they jumped all over the Dolphins early. I feel like Bryce Young might take this game a little bit personally, and he wants to show hey, I'm not the guy, I'm the guy that was drafted first. I was the guy everybody was talking about in college. I know C.J. Stroud's having a nice year, but I come out and I surprise people. I'm going to go Carolina Panthers.
Texans, whoop them.
All righty. Oh, man. This is a big week right here because there's a lot of splits already. Could be going somewhere.
Listen. You brought this up, right? Right. If you're not first, you're last.
Very true.
Right? You brought up the record.
I did.
Let's see what happens next week, baby.
Let's see what happens. All right. Back to you. Oh, no, wait. This is me. I'm sorry.
No, it's me, right?
Oh, it is you. Yeah, you're right. Cleveland at Seattle.
No, it's you.
It was you because you picked Houston and then I went to Carolina. It's you. Right. Cleveland at Seattle, and I'm glad you're picking this one first. It's a tough game.
No, you go first.
No.
I picked the Texans.
Yes, because you picked them. Oh, yeah, you're right. This is tough. This is tough.
Look at this guy. He wants to copy my pick, America.
No, you're right.
Make a decision.
So Cleveland at Seattle. Cleveland, I just think 2 wins in a row. Seattle's playing well. It's at Seattle. Ooh, boy, this is a tough one, man. You know what? After watching, I'm going to go Seattle, and I'll tell you why. I'm going Seattle because while Cleveland's defense is very impressive, the Colts did show that you can put up some points on them, and I'm sorry, but I'm just alarmed at what I'm seeing out of Deshaun Watson. And if P.J. Walker's a starter, I just think that's ultimately going to be the difference. Yes, I get it. He came in and he was fine against the 49ers, but I don't think fine is necessarily going to do in this matchup. I like the Seahawks.
I love the Browns. Okay. Love the Browns. Listen.
He's going for it here, America.
Listen,
he wants his lead.
Myles Garrett dominated. I think they're going to bully them. I think they're going to come in, punch them in their mouth. I think they're going to be very aggressive. I think they're going to beat them up. I think they're going to run the balls down their throat. I think this is, first of all, if you remember, in this last game, that defense gave up a ton of points.
They did.
Right? So I think they're going to make up for it. They're going to hear about it all week, right, during practice, and they're going to come out and make a statement. Browns 24-10.
All right. Listen, we're a little bit pressed for time, but we're lucky. These next 2 matchups, I think, are pretty quick and don't really need much. Kansas City at Denver. I'm going to pencil us both in there. Listen, Denver, it's nice.
I'm on that Swiftie bandwagon.
Your defense, yeah, it's all about T-Swift. Listen, Denver, your defense has played better, but Kansas City is rounding into form. Their offense starting to take place. I like Kansas City. Start whoever you got fantasy-wise on KC. Javonte Williams is starting to emerge a little bit, so maybe he has a decent game. Next one, pretty easy, too. They are at Arizona, but Baltimore at Arizona. I think we both like Baltimore.
Agreed.
And if I'm Baltimore, I mean, if you got people, Lamar, the Gus Bus, Andrews, Zay Flowers, go with it. Ooh, love this game. And I'm already going to go another split here. Cincinnati at San Francisco. Don't even need a long explanation. I'm going the Bengals, coming off a bye. The Bengals are getting their season right this week, baby. Let's go. I know you're going with the Niners. Come on, go with the Niners, brother. That's your squad. Oh, I got him at a loss of words right here. He doesn't like the Bengals coming off bye going into this matchup.
Debo is not playing this game.
He's not.
Debo is not playing this game.
McCaffrey didn't look right.
McCaffrey still might be banged up. They're on a short week, right? At the end of the day, I talked about sometimes in season, matchups don't really work themselves out. I think the 49ers are in a little bit of a rut. I don't anticipate them to lose 3 games in a row, but I do think this is a moment for that. And I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Whoa! Wow! I convinced them.
I think, here's the thing. They're heading in opposite directions.
I totally agree.
Joe Burrow, he's getting healthy. The Bengals have to play catch up because of how they started the season.
Yep.
And
they started to look better those 2 weeks before the bye.
I think the 49ers are just too beat up right now. And they're on a short week, right? So that recipe, right? One team coming off a bye, another team on a short week. Granted, it was a tough loss, but again, you're missing Debo. You're missing one of your best players. That Cincinnati defense should, round themselves out.
Yeah, they've been playing better.
So I am going to pick the Bengals.
Wow. All right. So we're running in the clock here, but Chicago at LA, the Chargers. I do expect this to be a high-scoring game. While Chicago did surprise Vegas this week. I feel like the Chargers.
Tyson
Bagent, man. Got his first career victory.
65 family members
on the back of my boy Deontay Foreman. You got to see him very closely this week. He performed well, didn't he? But I like the Chargers simply because across the board, I just think they're going to be the more talented team, and that
they need a win. They need a win.
They need
a win.
Yeah, like they're more talented, I think, than their record suggests. But they got
just say this: if they lose this game,
it's over.
Staley should be fired.
I agree.
They should be fired. Like that's.
And we got to start holding Herbert.
And listen, I don't want anybody to lose their job, but that is just malfeasance. Right?
I hear you. Final game. Vegas at Detroit. I'm going Detroit, and I love anybody I can get my hands on fantasy-wise for Detroit. Even in that drubbing they took from Baltimore, they still had some guys. Amon-Ra St. Brown put up numbers. Jahmyr Gibbs got his first touchdown. He showed you the emergence. What a dual threat he can be, both running and passing. Yeah, I like Detroit this game all
Jimmy Garoppolo's coming back, but I'm on the Detroit Lions. Right, I believe in them. They just got beat up. They're going to make up for it.
Hey, listen, that's all the time we have. We will see you next week with my co-host Ricardo DaCosta when we
run it back.
Run it back.